Hello, this is Pastor Michael Rogers from The Jar, and I've been doing this series called Toosday, T-O-O, Tuesday, and just looking at different really good reasons why some people are struggling coming back to gatherings of faith, or maybe trying them for the very first time. And today we're dealing with I have too much doubt. I don't know if you guys see the bookcase behind me, but I probably have about enough books to fill about another 6 of those somewhere in the garage. And a lot of them are based on things that I didn't know about that I needed to learn. And the reason that I did so was because I believe, as we do at the Jar, that doubts are just questions that haven't been answered yet. And so sometimes we find out that our doubts were, there was reason for them, there's good reason for them. And sometimes we find out that the reason there was doubt there was because it led us to a whole new understanding of something where we went, oh, that's why it's like that. That's why I can believe that. That's what's going on. And what I have found as I've done my studies and things like that is that much of the time, the best way for me to either relieve my doubts or confirm my doubts is to go to the source, is to actually ask the people who know. I find that if I don't want to get rid of my doubt, what I often do is I go to people who don't know or people who don't agree with whatever it is I want to doubt. And when I do that, I kind of confirm my own bias. I kind of say, oh, good, that's what I thought, so I'm just going to go with it. But often, in order for me to do that, I have to go to people who are not necessarily experts in the field. They're more like well-informed people that have already had preconceived notions of their own. So here's the thing: if you have doubts about whether or not there really is a God, or whether it could be that basic, or it could be as complicated as I doubt that we really need to gather together as a church. Honestly, the only way for you to remove those doubts is to ask more questions, and that's why we value questions at the Jar. You may not have time to read all of those books. You may need to talk to somebody who's had the experience from not just reading those books, but living it out day to day. And when it comes to matters of faith, this is really important because often there's a point where the amount of information you have ends and there's a little bit left. Like all of us, none of us have figured God out yet. And the reason is because we're finite minds trying to figure out an infinite being. And so if you ask someone and you say, I'm expressing some doubts here, what's going on here? And they are a believer and they can tell you a lot of things, but this one thing they can't answer, that doesn't mean it's not true. What it means is that person hasn't figured that part out yet. And so a believer who is really paying attention to what God is asking them to do will say, I don't know, let's go find out together. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to figure it out. They may have to have somebody else step in and talk to them about that. So here's my point. If you have a lot of doubts, that's a good thing because it means you have a lot of questions. And we don't want anyone to take anything just because we said so. We want those questions to be answered. The Jar is a place that you can go Sundays at 4 o'clock where we invite questions and we're asking people to participate in what we're doing. And just be honest, be authentic. I don't know if I believe this yet. I'm checking it out. Whether it's I believe in God or I believe in Jesus or I believe in the church or I believe in gathering or whatever it is, God is big enough for your doubts, and so we can be too. So this is what we would say. We're not the only church that feels that way. There are a lot of other churches out there that can do that too. But here's the thing. The only way for you to get answers for your doubts is to go to the place where there are answers. And a gathering of believers is that place. And you're going to find, if you are a doubter of whether or not church is necessary, you're going to find when you go to the church and you start getting answers to your doubts, exactly one of the reasons why it is so important for us to gather. I know it's difficult because I know in James 1:6, James tells us when you ask for something, you must believe and not doubt because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. And so it sounds like doubt is a bad thing. But at the same time, in Jude verse 22, it says, be merciful to those who doubt. In other words, give people room to be able to do that. And so James is not saying you should never doubt. What James is talking about is when you want to believe God for something, then believe him for something. But if you have doubts inside of that, then someone should be merciful to you and help you with those questions and with those answers. My hope is, if you are staying away from church because you just feel like you have too much doubt, that you change your thinking, you rethink it, and you realize that if you have too much doubt, then church is the perfect place for you to be.